Welcome to the Security Cocktail Hour. I'm Joe Patty.
I'm Adam Roth.
Adam, another fabulous, lovely day in the world in general, but always it's special in Staten Island.
And I've heard this 3 times in the last 24 hours with the last 3 podcasts. I'm getting a little bit tired of this, Joe.
Yeah, I know. We've done a lot of recording. We record things in batches, and I'm just running out of banter lines, at least to start off.
Yeah, Joe, this is like the Matrix all over again.
Yeah.
Well,
fortunately, we have not one, but 2 guests, so I don't have to talk that much. We have some longtime friends of the show, Yehuda Kirschenbaum and Andy Esterman. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify or another podcasting platform, please follow us. We're trying to build the audience for the show, and that really helps us a lot. So thanks a lot.
And to add, if you're in the middle of creating a will, please leave your money to the Security Cocktail Hour so we can persevere.
Yeah, that's going to work. Okay, so, gentlemen, we have a special panel because, we usually have security people or people associated with security. And so we have a mix of people. Adam and I, we're hardcore security guys. And Andy, I know you've been in security for years, but you're actually in sales, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. No, he's okay. I've known him a long time. He's cool. And Yehuda, you are in marketing, right?
Yeah, marketing. And this is my first couple of years in security.
Oh, really? Okay. And
Yeah.
you haven't run screaming yet, so that's good.
Not yet, no.
Not yet?
You guys have been too welcoming.
Well, I mean, let me not welcome them. These 2 are associated with mistakes.
Yes.
Well, this is the mistakes panel. And speaking of which, this is, of course, the Security Cocktail Hour. So today's drink is whiskey, basically. Our guest choice, as usual. And so cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Glad you're here.
Cheers.
Yeah, we're going in hard on this one. And there's a little story behind the drink, was that this is our panel on mistakes and on how to recover from mistakes, and deal with them and move on, which is important in life and also very important in security. So yes, mistakes happen. Both our own and other people's we got to deal with. So we were trying to come up with a drink that was invented by mistake. We picked whiskey, and I think we were going with, Adam, didn't you say something like alcohol was invented by mistake by cavemen or something like that?
I might have made a mistake when I Googled it, but it said alcohol was created by mistake.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you ever heard that before? Is that true?
Somebody just left something running too long and the person who had the first sip got knocked out.
Well,
That looks like fun.
so let me just say this. Anything that we say right now is all about mistakes. So if we say something wrong, it was a mistake. Full disclaimer.
There you go.
Half the lies they tell about me aren't true. Yogi Berra.
That's good.
Oh, that's great. Cool.
That's good. That's really good.
All right. So let's start off. This is going to be like group therapy, I guess. We're going to share with the group, share our feelings or whatever. So we're going to start out with everyone. Tell us about a mistake that you made that might have felt like the end of the world, but really, whatever you ended up learning from, or not. You hit in the corner in a fetal position. Everything happens. So we'll go in alphabetical order. Sorry, Yehuda. Andy, why don't you go first?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm sure that agreeing to this was a mistake in a long series of mistakes.
I knew
Well,
that
at least
was
you get a
coming.
drink out of it. So
Yeah, well, there's that. Mistakes. I have a long, sordid background that includes cybersecurity. But prior to that, I was a carpenter for many years. And I was on a job site, and I was tasked with laying out a wall. It was between a room and a hallway, and it had 2 pocket doors and 2 doors that swung open. And I laid out and built half the wall, and it was 5/8 inches off where it should have been.
and that's
So that
a
was
lot,
an ugly-
actually.
that was an
5/8 of an
ugly-
inch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
That's a lot, 5/8 of an inch when you're trying
Well,
to fit things together, right?
That's the
Yeah.
width of a piece of sheetrock. That's the thickness of sheetrock. So I didn't account for the sheetrock in one plane. And happily, the whole thing wasn't finished, but I had put in a day or two of work to get it up and sort of in place. And there wasn't any choice but to own it and take it down and rebuild it. And my philosophy with these sorts of things is when you make a mistake, run towards it. And in this case, I didn't have much choice. I mean, the wall was off, and there weren't any ways to fudge it or hide it, or in high-end carpentry, everything has to line up, and it's very precise. And I just had to bite the bullet and take it down and put it back up. I'm happy to say that the second time it didn't take twice as long.
Well, that's it. Did you ever make that mistake again? Put it that way.
No, that mistake I never made again. Clearly, I've made other mistakes since then, but.
So, Andy, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's probably that train that's going to hit you.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be inspirational, Adam. Remember? I mean, come on.
Oh, it is inspirational. You get past what you did, and you persevere. But look, you can get hit by a train and still persevere.
You just learn to jump out of the next one.
Hey, not by Jersey Transit. Those things, they don't have a good record.
You're lucky if it even shows up to hit you, Jersey.
Yeah,
Transit.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's the safety mechanism. All right. So Yehuda, what have you got? Lay a story on us.
Oh, wow. So having always been in cybersecurity, and one of my earlier positions, I was an e-commerce website, and I was responsible for setting up coupon codes and all the discounts and all that. And I just, was not paying attention, or, just missed one switch on the, on a button. And I made a coupon that was live without any other check across an entire website. And it was an 80% off coupon, and anybody can use it. They can use additional coupons. Ended up going that way for like 3 hours, costing, our company about $3,000. And, it got shut off. It got found. Very minimal damage. Let's just say 3,000 is not minimal, but, my boss, the next morning he started talking to me. He's like, with that amount of money, I could have bought a Dolphin. And, I said, there was nothing I could have said. It wasn't my fault. I couldn't place the blame on anybody. It was my fault. I made the mistake. And, I said I was sorry. And a few days later, I decided I was going to obviously own up to it like I did already, but I wanted to make it a little bit more fun and just a way to say I'm sorry, because, my boss, he didn't need the $3,000, but it's always nice to have. But that Dolphin thing stuck with me, and I ended up adopting a Dolphin from like an Ocean Conservancy project. And, to his mail, he got a certificate. He got a little stuffed animal. So, he kept it on his desk. And again, for me, it was something that I've done those codes hundreds of times, and I never made that mistake before. But like, and like Andy said, you're never making that mistake again. You're double checking, you're triple checking, you're making sure that all the buttons are squared away the way they're supposed to, and the settings are set up.
Well, you got off easy. I mean, besides the whole Dolphin thing, which is just flat out bizarre. I don't know who talks like that.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that could have been hundreds of thousands if it were a high volume site.
Exactly. Got off easy. And again, that's why it was, I was able to have fun with it, because it was a minimal amount of sales that happened. It was an early morning thing that, had it gone all day, it would have probably tripled or quadrupled the value. But so I was able to get away with just a little plush adoption.
How did you
Dolphin.
figure it out? How did you find that out? I'm sorry.
Honestly, I didn't figure it out. Our customer support team did. They were like seeing all the transactions come through at a ridiculously low, value, and they're like, "What's going on here?" And they realized somebody left this coupon code on, active for the entire site.
I heard a rumor you got 80% less bonus. No, I'm joking.
So money.
Thank God I wasn't on commission.
I don't know. So Andy, you ever miss a zero on a purchase order or something like something crazy like that?
Plenty of other mistakes, but that's not one of them.
Oh, that's good. That's cool. So Adam, I know I could recite your many mistakes that I used to put in your performance review, but what would you like to share?
Well, I made the mistake of working for you. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Ooh.
cold.
By the way, that was not a mistake. I had no choice. You
Shots
inherited me.
fired.
Um,
Seriously.
it's funny. It's like when I listen to all these things, I have so many mistakes to recite, but I'll recite other people's mistakes. Um, when I bought the door for the front of my house, we measured out 4 inches. We're talking about carpentry, the front door, and when we got the door, we forgot to. I'll take blame for it too. We forgot that we have stucco on the front of the house, and because we had stucco at 4 inches coming out, we forgot that the frame overlapped the stucco, so we had to build an 8 inch, 4 inch for the door and 4 inch for the enclosure in order to meet the door to the house. So thankfully, my carpenter was really good, and he fixed the issue, but it could have been a lot worse. It just took an extra 3 or 4 hours to resolve it. And then you talk about making mistakes and purchase orders. I have a friend of mine that wanted to show the mistakes of a well-known company that he worked for, and he put in a PO for a helicopter, and the helicopter actually got purchased by mistake. So
Like a real helicopter?
a
Like,
real helicopter,
Wow.
and when they went to go cancel it, they had to, not that it left the warehouse, but they had to pay a restocking fee, which was in the six figures.
Oh my God.
Mistakes that I made. One that I always laugh about. Back in the day when I was doing networks and I was doing Pixes, Cisco Pixes, which are firewalls. For those who don't know, I was in Bermuda and I spent 3 or 4 hours configuring a firewall. Unbeknownst to me, that the hardware didn't match on the primary and secondary Pixes, and there's a cable between
okay,
the.
wait a second. Just so everyone knows, you're talking about firewalls, and you install these things in what's called high availability pairs.
Sorry,
So if
yes.
one breaks, it goes to the other. And with those older ones, especially, they have to be identical. They have to be exactly the same one. So
Thanks, Joe. Where were you 20 years ago?
For the technical people in the audience, it's called failover.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, it's called failover, whereas Adam just failed.
I
Anyway.
did fail. I made a mistake in the way I presented the story. So I spent hours configuring the firewall with something called access control lists. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm telling what's okay for the firewall to talk to and to go through the network and what's not okay. But unbeknownst to me, when I went to go sync it, because the hardware was not identical on both firewalls, so you couldn't fail over correctly. Instead of syncing from the primary to the secondary, somehow or another the secondary synced to the primary, and because I didn't save my access control list, the things I programmed, everything got written over, and I had to spend another 2 3 hours reconfiguring it, and I missed a really good barbecue in Bermuda.
Bummer. Wow. So I guess I got to fess up too. The original idea for this came when I made a mistake in doing our usual posting to LinkedIn when we promote a podcast. I got something wrong. I usually put in a little mic emoji, and instead I put in my little tag from our template that actually says mic, insert mic emoji here, whatever. And then of course immediately I laugh it off. We let it go. I put a little joke in the comments, and then Adam says, "Oh, let's do a whole show on how you screwed this up." I'm like, "Oh, that's great, Adam. That's good." So,
Well, let me fess up before you go on. I said, instead of survey says for our game show, I said surgery says.
surgery, yeah, the old autocorrect.
Well, you'll never be able to live it down. If this show is successful, you're going to have to relive this mistake for on and on and on.
I will gladly relive the mistake if the show gets 1 million subs, as we say. But I've made other podcasts and mistakes because you know what, and this is kind of a bit of a lesson too. Adam and I are not media people. We're security people, and so what you can probably tell from watching this show. But we've had to learn to do all this stuff, and I just realized yesterday as I was prepping the show that, like I said, we were gonna, we knew we were doing 3 shows, so I got to get my stuff all together. I couldn't figure out why my mic wasn't getting the right sound and everything. And it ends up that for the past over a year that we've been doing this podcast, I've been using the mic exactly wrong, exactly the way you're not supposed to do it. Like you may notice in this one, in the past, I've had the mic where it kind of sticks up a little bit here because I got on the cool arm, like the people on YouTube do to make it cool? Well, it ends up my mic is not the kind where you do that and it's facing you. Mine, you're supposed to be looking at the mic upright. It's called a side address mic, not a top address mic or something. So yeah, I screwed that up.
So
and you know what? Somehow we lived.
So you chose this moment on this show to tell me that, and I can't curse the living beep, beep, beep out of you.
You can if you want, but I control the editing of this show, so go right ahead.
That would be a mistake.
So you're the captain now.
That's right. Well, I guess so to speak. But actually, so, and you know that's an incident of, some little mistakes, whatever. A little one doesn't matter. Another one that no one would have noticed if I didn't say it. But I have in my real profession in security, I have made some mistakes that are a little bit bigger. There's been the internet-facing vulnerability that I missed that might have caused a little bit of trouble that we had to take care of quickly. There's the pen test I had done where we might have left a thing or two out of scope, and the bad guys found it before we did. These things do happen. Yes,
and
Adam.
You made a hiring mistake, and it wasn't just me.
Yes, I made a hiring mistake. Adam loves to tell the story of how we were hiring. It was between two people, two very good people, whatever. And Adam told me he was advocating for one. He's like, gotta take this guy, gotta take this guy, gotta take this guy. And I said, you know what? I'm going the other way. It was not to spite Adam. When you sit in the big chair, you gotta make decisions. He ended up not working out so good. And we ended up subsequently hiring the other guy who's a superstar.
Look, I'm here to point out your mistakes, but don't point out mine.
Thank you. Well, we only have an hour, and we have guests we have to hear from.
Live and burn. Live and burn.
Live and burn. Yeah. Right.
I mean, those mistakes happen all the time. You got to go with your gut, and I think, that's why you have other people around you to help catch some of those mistakes and question, again, those controls so that, are set up so that you can trust your gut, but also have somebody check you.
Yehuda, I joke around with Joe, and Joe makes a lot of good choices, right? But we all are I shouldn't say we all are, because I'm not really like that. And a lot of us, even though we joke around, people love to point out the mistakes that you make, but they don't always praise you when you do really good things. And I kind of like that to the fact I'm an EMT that really hasn't worked in the last 7-8 years. But when I did work, no one came up and said, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. My husband's having a heart attack. Great to see you." They're not happy to see you. You're there. But when you do something good, they never say, "Oh, that was a great job." And that's part of life, right? People are there to point out your mistakes, but a lot of people don't praise you when you do something really good. So
that's true. And I've gone out of my way when I've gotten good service to let people know, including owners of small businesses, where I felt well taken care of. And they usually think when you're like, "Hey, can I speak to the owner?" They're like, "Oh, here we go." And then you're like, "Hey, I really like your business. This guy did a great job." And I mean, the look of happiness that comes on their faces is indescribable.
Definitely.
Well, first is a look of terror.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. So my wife is a journalist, and she gets a lot of hate mail. She gets a lot of complaint mail and all that stuff. But you know what? A lot of people do also reach out and be like, "What a great article. This really impacted me." And as few and far between as those emails come, they make up for all the negative comments that she gets because, they're so unexpected. She expects the negative mail and, "Oh, you made a mistake," or "You did this wrong," or whatever. But the one or two people that per article will say, "Hey, thank you. This was great." And like you're saying, Andy, go out of your way to say something if somebody did a great job, even if, whatever. It means
it goes a long way.
It's so appreciated. It goes a long way.
It's really important too as a manager, because you have this interesting sort of thing where it's like, especially with your more junior people, you need to train them, you need to bring them along, and you need to give them things that they can be successful at to pump up their confidence, but you also need to stretch them a little bit and do some things where it's not entirely, it's not a lock they're going to get it right. And some of the art of it is to make sure that's not going to be something that's crushing to them. You also find out a lot about them, how resilient they are. But the other thing is insecurity. Is you need to give people something when you're doing something like that, when you're stretching them. You can't give them something where a mistake is catastrophic. Otherwise, you have a problem. And that's the manager's fault then, if they put too much on someone that they're not ready for.
My recommendation is that if somebody is not doing the right job, don't necessarily, and I'm not saying we all do this, don't necessarily run to speak to the manager or the supervisor. Unless the issue is so egregious, try to speak to the individual themselves. Take them to the side. Don't embarrass them. Speak to them quietly. Hey, look, I just want to let you know I wasn't happy with your service, and this is why. Don't just tell me you weren't happy. Give them some critique if they're willing to listen. But sometimes people really do have bad days, and you don't know what's going on. And I've seen the back and forth where people say, look, it's an experience. You can't have a bad day if you're a waiter or a waitress or this or that. You can. You try not to bring your stuff from home to work, but sometimes you can't be the chipper person, an incredible person, but it doesn't mean to be disrespectful either. However, conversely, if somebody's doing an incredible job, ask to speak to the person's manager, but before you go, they say, listen, I want to speak to your boss, but I want you to know I'm not saying anything negative about you. I want to tell them how good you are. I don't want you to fear me telling them that. So this way they don't have that credible heartbeat, like, they're stressing out. So that's my feelings.
I was just going to add, Joe, what you were saying about a manager putting someone in the wrong position, and maybe this will lead into my next mistake. But when you're putting into someone in a position, you have to also empower them to ask for help. If they don't know what they're doing, you can't just say, here, take this and go run with it. And one of the things that when we talked about earlier was this next mistake that I'm going to share. It was about me not having the confidence to ask for help. It was a new thing that I wasn't comfortable with. I've never, I was tasked with putting in an in-store display, and that is top to bottom. That's like getting the rack that the equipment is being sent in, coordinating with the people who are installing the rack and all the materials and all the equipment, working with graphic design to make sure that like all the features are called out, speaking to the different vendors to get everything done and printed and set up, and lighting and I we had to then create a digital video for the display to have on the screen that we were putting on there. And we didn't have a hard deadline, so I pushed it off. And after a few months, the director of sales for that particular region is like, "Where's this thing? I've been waiting for months. I know we pushed it off, but where is it?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't work on it yet." And my procrastination came from I didn't know what to do. And at that point, my managers got looped into the conversation. They were able to kind of give me advice and help loop me in, and kind of set me up. And we built this thing. It was gorgeous. We put a lot of money into it. It was going to be this power display, power filtration display in a 7-foot server rack on the floor of a national electronics retailer, big chain. And it took a while to get everything set up. But once we got it rolling, it was rolling. We had the courier come and box it up and ship it to the location. It showed up. We called, the sales manager who was on the other side, who was setting it up for their side. It lasted one day on the floor of this retailer. The president of the retailer does a nightly walk of the floor just to, his check. That's he wants to make sure everything is tip top in his showroom. And he said it didn't meet the standards of the show floor, and it was there for 24 hours. We probably invested, I can't even say how many hours, hundreds of hours into building this thing, and probably up to 20 grand in getting this thing set up and created. and it lasted for 24 hours on the floor. And my hesitation in getting it started was a mistake on my part, that I didn't go ask for help, but also not managing it from the start of, hey, is this even allowed? Is this even, put me in contact with somebody on that side to make sure that we're doing it correctly, or whatever. And that was also another mismanaged aspect, not by me, not even by my boss, by the salesperson. But, for me, I didn't even have the questions to ask at that point. That was a big mistake. But, we salvaged it. We moved it to another retailer, a smaller regional retailer, who was like so happy to have it. And it ended up working out. But that was just something that, again, I'm going to learn from, and learn to ask for help, learn to check all the boxes and double check everything.
Yeah, it's interesting how you said that you procrastinated and you didn't ask for help because of fear. And I've heard they said that, procrastination is actually a manifestation of fear. You put things off because you don't want to deal with it. And, and unfortunately, when you do that, your worst fear ends up coming true. You actually make it happen. But, just in the context is, okay, you did, it did fail in a sense. It didn't do well. Did the world end? Put it that way.
Right. No, exactly.
You will it into reality. So many things go through my mind with that. And I've been in situations, not with Joe and not with my current employer, where I purposely...
In a parallel universe.
In a parallel universe with a blue moon in the middle of the desert while eating ice cream with it snowing. No, in all seriousness, I purposely procrastinated because not out of fear, but more out of the level of anxiety I was going to experience due to a certain organization, because it was such a toxic environment. I didn't want to bring it to the next steps. So I purposely didn't do what I had to do because I was set up purposely to fail. So sometimes you do things in order to survive, in order to live another day, and that's just how life is. And I don't think what I did was wrong in order for me to deal with very toxic people. So
I have a great quote on procrastination.
Right.
Never put off till tomorrow what you can do day after tomorrow just as well. Mark Twain.
that's man, you're great. We're gonna have to put these quotes on the on YouTube and LinkedIn when we post this.
There you go.
For a second there, I thought that was going to be Yogi Berra, but I guess not. You didn't say everything.
Yeah. But I also have another mistake to admit to. It was a measurement mistake. It's got funny religious overtones. Certainly a good thing in this day and age. So I'm Jewish. I was raised Jewish. The woman I married was raised Catholic. I was tasked with getting the Christmas tree at Christmas. And so we had a pair of French doors in the apartment, and there was only one that was active, and it was my job, it was my job to get the tree, and we would put it in front of the inactive door. So I go out to get the Christmas tree. If you've gotten Christmas trees before, they're wrapped up when you go to get them, especially on the street in New York. So I come home, I open up the thing, and it completely covers both doors. So what's the lesson there? The lesson is when you send a Jewish carpenter to go get a Christmas tree, remind him to take his tape measure.
I'm kind of surprised at you, because every place I've ever been to that sells Christmas trees says, Jewish people be aware, tree is bigger than it looks in the rearview mirror.
I'll tell
Andy,
you
when you started off with measuring and a religious story, I thought this was going in the way of circumcision. But
well, I'll tell you what I've gotten out of Andy's stories and Adam's too. I think it's that security people shouldn't do home improvement. That's one thing you don't even touch.
Whoa.
No,
Just a minute. You see those shelves there?
Yeah.
I built them and hung them up.
I could build Lego.
Well, Andy, I'd like to say that it would make for a really great, unforgettable show if they collapsed on you in the middle of this recording. But that actually might
Oh,
be cruel.
wow.
I wouldn't wish that on you. What happened with CrowdStrike? We're not going to get into it deeply, but what happened with CrowdStrike is something that has in common with a lot of other security um, events, and that is a mistake. There was a mistake there. I mean, they're claiming it's a mistake at one time with one kind, whether it was a mistake of that or not, who knows? Only they know. But in security in particular, mistakes are problematic. And we say, well, mistakes happen, and we want to be forgiving, and we need to expect it. But at the same time, you don't want something to happen that's catastrophic. And that's why what is that? I think it's Toyota, the Japanese. They say something like, "People don't fail, systems fail." And the trick is to have more people with eyes on something, more checks and everything to minimize the possibility of errors.
Yeah, I don't want to throw stones in a glass house or whatever the metaphor or saying
You mean at
is.
me?
You too. My my feelings are that any one of us can make mistakes, and I don't want to sit there and be an quarterback something I was not involved with. But I realize people make mistakes. Where you don't want mistakes is when you're getting surgery and other things. And guess what? I know plenty of people at EMTs who've made mistakes. And when you're in very highly active situations and you're making decisions in a moment's notice, and this is the same thing with police, same thing with firemen, fire people, same thing with soldiers. Sometimes you're such in a highly volatile situation, and it might not be with CrowdStrike, but to me, my quote is the only mistake that you make is a mistake is the decision that you didn't make. Don't let other people make decisions for you. I know that sounds like a weird, saying or quote, but you got to make decisions. Sometimes you do make a bad decision. Hopefully, it's not life threatening. And whatever happened with CrowdStrike will eventually come out a little bit more and more. But CrowdStrike is not the only organization that's going to make that mistake. And other companies have made mistakes with DNS. Other companies have made mistakes with not re-registering their domain and then failing. Microsoft did that, believe it or not. So
Yeah.
so we all make mistakes. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how big that mistake is going to be.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you also with the CrowdStrike thing, it is true. It was so, very briefly, it was so catastrophic because it's a particular type of software that has to dig very deep into Windows in a specific way that can make it unstable. And I will bet you, I don't have any inside information, but I will bet you all the other companies that do the same thing and make their
Learn
competitors,
from it.
instead of fixing stuff, we're going and saying, make sure we're good on this. Double check everything. Put in more checks.
Yeah.
Make sure we don't have this. Right? Sometimes I personally much prefer to learn from other people's mistakes than to learn from mine.
Yeah,
Although
I'd
you got
rather
to do
not have a
both.
mistake, but I don't want to start like saying things about an organization. Then 3 years later, they come to the podcast and say, "Remember when Adam said that? Well, he took down the Western Hemisphere."
Yeah, but at the same time, what I'm saying is that everyone in the space, knows that by the grace of whatever, it wasn't us. That it can, a lot of these things, it can happen to anyone, because nobody's, obviously some people are better than others in certain things, but no one's perfect. These
Well,
things can happen.
And
yeah,
the media, all the coverage was about how could this happen? How do we avoid this the next time and all that and all the costs and things like that. But what I saw the next day on Friday on LinkedIn, so much of the response from within the security community was, how can we help?
Yeah,
Is there
yeah,
anybody that needs help?
yeah,
You know, come to us, we'll help you. Not trying to ambulance chase or go after CrowdStrike or call them out or anything. It was so much. How can we help? How can we come together as a community to solve this problem together? And again, everyone's gonna, like you said, they made a mistake. They owned up to it. They're still talking about it, and everyone's going to learn from it. And if they don't, they're making the mistake.
I know there was another quote, and I know it was like to error is human, not the actual one to forget divine, but it was another one. But like to forget is human. To really f things up, you need to be
You
whatever,
need a computer.
something like that. Yeah.
I think it's the error is human. To really screw something up, you need a computer or you need something else. Yeah. So let me ask, talking about mistakes, Andy, since you've been in sales for so long, have you ever been in a situation where it was something like that, where the company has done, where your employer has done something painful and you've had to go to the customers and deal with it and, like you say, run towards it, try to manage the crisis?
When that happens, I think a lot of it has to do with emotional management, right? You make the mistake, you have to start by managing your own emotions, right? In a company setting, you're going to have to somewhat manage the emotions of your colleagues. And then there's always going to be a party on the other side. And you can't manage their emotions, but you can control your own actions such that you can sort of mitigate their reactions and try to make things as diplomatic as possible. So in sales, that happens all the time. I mean, that's day in, day out. There's you made some little mistake. The client perceives it one way. I can give you a non-technical pen test example where my current company was doing a pen test for a large asset manager, $500 billion under management. We were pen testing against their infrastructure, and we found we had some positives that they questioned, and we went back and forth, and there were questions about the report. And, they started to get a little testy. We started to get a little testy, and I had to manage, between my side and their side, just to help move things forward. Ultimately, there were false positives, but there was a certain amount of back and forth that just had to be dealt with, and so things didn't escalate, And we got to the end of the engagement. Everything was fine. Everybody's on good terms. But prior to that, there were things that had to be dealt with. That's more project management than a real sales story, but in a way, it's the same thing.
I got one for you, Andy. Let me know if you have experienced this. I worked for a company where we used to bill clients, and the salespeople would end up selling the stuff. Not their fault. And then we end up finding out 8 months later, 7 months later, 6 months later, that the billing people weren't billing the client. So the salesperson has to go back and manage the client and say, "Hey, Mr. or Mrs. whatever. Hey, how you doing? We haven't been billing you for the last 8 months. You owe X amount of dollars. Just want to let you know we're going to start billing you." And then a proper client should probably say, "Hey, we get it. We still owe you the money. We'll pay you, but that's a lot of money to come up with. Can we come up with a payment plan?" But something like, "You didn't bill me? That's your problem, not mine. Don't charge me."
I would, I'm in sales, right? So I would try to get my company to agree to say, well, we're going to hold the price for next year. I would try to give something in order to get something. And I would start by giving, rather than demanding. You're not in a great negotiating position there. You're right. The client it could be a lot of money to come up with,
I'm good at giving. I give attitude.
Well, there you go.
We meant something
No,
valuable.
but also that's the mistake, right? Andy, you're working on a relationship,
Yeah.
right? You have to understand and say, yes, there was a billing error on our side. They have to pay for, what they owe us, but how much is it worth to us to lose this client, right?
Yeah, I would want to be able to say, of course, we can set up a payment plan, and on top of that, we're going to hold your price steady for 2 to 3 years, or something
Right.
to give it to, make it easier for them to pay. We don't want to give up the revenue. We admit
Right.
that it's our mistake. We're owning it, but we don't want to make it too painful for the client either.
Right.
I think it's really important, like you're saying, to kind of step back a bit to say, when you make the mistake, you want to fess up to it. But it's harder when it doesn't just impact you, but it impacts someone else, and you've got to make it, right. And that's one of the things that's really tricky in security too. You see all these things about these breaches and stuff, people getting hackers getting the personal data and stuff. Yeah, the company screwed up, but the truth is, the real impact very often is to their customers.
Correct.
Not to them so directly. Only to their relationship, because they let their customers down, and that's very tough when you've let someone down. You need to work on, repairing the relationship, getting the confidence back.
And that's very tricky with business to consumer companies. Business to business, it's fewer personalities. Business to consumer, you have 5 million customers or something. How are you going to regain their confidence?
Right.
Yeah, my dad showed me something. He got a letter, I don't know, from his doctor or his medical group or something. And it's the standard form letter that says, whatever, we take your privacy very, very seriously, but we let all your data out, blah, blah, blah. We're doing everything we can. But so, he knows I know about these things. So he gives it to me. He goes, what does this say? What does this mean? What do I do? And I read it. I said, it says they screwed you. I'm like, there's nothing more to it than that. I'm like, what? But in that case, and they're not going to do anything about it, which is why I can be a little bit glib about it.
And they're not even trying to do the right thing, Joe. They're doing it because they're obligated by a law, whether it's a New Jersey law or a New York law, or if it's a federal law. All they're doing is doing the check boxes. If they didn't have to send that letter, they would never send it anyway.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, when I go on Am I Pwned or Not, I go through 17 pages of how many breaches I've been in. So, it's only a matter of time. I mean, I would love to get like a scorecard and like see who gets more breaches over another person and play a game with that. It's only a matter of time before every organization gets breached. Every organization gets breached. And it's hard to control. So some of it's 0 days, some of its vulnerability is not disclosed yet. Some of it is pure mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, Joe and I used to, do a firewall review every year. And sometimes the firewalls were open to any. And we're like, why? Oh, I didn't know that, So sometimes, what any means, for anybody who doesn't know, that means it's open to any port anywhere in the world, to any destination IP.
Which, I mean, to totally translate it out, it's like you got this firewall with all these rules, this big configuration that's supposed to say what goes in and what goes out, and there's this one little line at the end that says ignore all that stuff and let everything through. That's like the nightmare. That's a big mistake that makes people freak out. That's why my hair is this color.
That's why my hair is this color.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't have the excuse. I haven't been in cybersecurity long enough.
Yeah, but you're a brother.
Just wait.
Right.
Just wait.
And you have the same hairdo as Adam.
I know. We go to the same barber.
There you go. All right, so I think we're getting towards the end here. We've got plenty of liquor, but I don't know how much more I can go through this. I need something a little more positive to deal with. I don't know.
Well, let me say this, Joe. To those listeners, we would love to hear about your mistakes. I mean, please don't put anything really personally identifiable, but if you want to send us your mistakes via email, post them on LinkedIn under Security Cocktail Hour.
In the comments.
Please,
like and comment.
Of
subscribe.
YouTube. We would love to hear about your mistakes. If your mistake seems pretty cool, maybe we'll have you on a second show. But we would love to hear more about your mistakes.
Well,
Especially if you've had the most breaches. Adam and Joe really want to meet you. If you've had the most breaches, they're dying to meet you.
Yeah.
that's right. Well, we always like funny stories, and we like, war stories as security guys. But, we do want to keep it a little bit inspirational. So, the point of this is not to...
It's not to condemn you.
Right.
It's not to condemn
Right.
you.
It's to get better, and also to recognize that these are things that are realities that we need to deal with, and you're gonna have to deal with it one way or another. And dealing with it the right way, or the more effective way, will not only make you better at what you do, but improve your life and your blood pressure and everything.
Should we dare say that the best mistake sent to us will get a mug?
Okay, why not?
I don't know over what period of time, but
I don't know how we're going to decide. Well, we'll see. If someone sends us a good one, we'll send you a mug. Why not?
or maybe we'll, depending on how many we get, maybe we'll put a LinkedIn poll or something.
Okay. And we'll have mugs for our guests too, of
Yes,
course.
absolutely. Yep.
As always. Yes.
Future guests, not current, right? I mean, too
No,
late
no,
for
no.
us.
Current guests.
No, current.
We'll get you
Yeah.
mugs.
But
I'd like
look,
to know
look,
the
if,
parameters of a good mistake versus a bad mistake. Versus
Yeah.
the
A
best
good mistake is one that doesn't hurt you, right? We can end with, or I can share one mistake that I made. It was a personal mistake that ended up not, biting me in the ass, and to my very, lucky marriage, it didn't bite me in the ass because my wife and I, we were coming to New York, and we were living in San Diego at the time, coming to New York, and then the school system there had 3 weeks off between Christmas and break. Uh, Obscene, right? 3 weeks off. What are you gonna do? So we brought our kids to New York, dropped them off at grandparents, and we were gonna go to Portugal for a week during that 1 week break. Uh, I actually didn't have my passport. It was expired,
Expired.
but because it was the height of the Omicron variant, we decided it was too risky to leave the country. We might not be allowed back in. We ended up canceling the flight, pushing it, 6 months later. And because of that, I was able to get my passport renewed and not have to ruin my marriage. So a mistake that didn't hurt me. And, at the end of the day, I now have a calendar reminder and, whenever my passport is going to expire. So I know in 6 months beforehand to get that taken care of. But again, you learn from these mistakes, whether they're personal, professional, big or small, and that kind of shapes what you do and how you act in life.
So there's a thing that just came out, and uh, it's about 9/11, and it's about some of the people that made mistakes going to work and how they missed the train
Hmm.
or they forgot to do something and they had to stay a little bit later. And again, I'm not looking to downplay. It's a horrible thing that happened, but there are people still alive today because of the mistakes they made, not being able to make it to the World Trade Center or to the plane that unfortunately was driven into the ground in Pennsylvania. So some mistakes, even though there's devastation and other things, actually was in was good for the person that made that
Right.
mistake. And those are why some of those people are still alive today. And it was a whole article or video or something. I forgot what it was. I just saw it. I don't remember what I saw, but I saw a glimpse of it. And sometimes mistakes do error in your favor, and sometimes they don't. So it's just a
So,
little point
in
I wanted
our
to make.
quest for better outcomes, we should make as many mistakes as possible. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, possibly. You know, I forgot I left the lights on my car. I couldn't make it to work. I didn't get up in time. I missed the clock, and I didn't miss the train.
Yeah,
Things
yeah.
like that. Those things have happened too. So, even though some things are associated with really horrible things, that those mistakes actually have saved people's lives as well.
Well, my final thought will be, as I tell my kids, always just do the best you can.
Yeah.
No one expects you to be perfect, even though you might think your boss needs you to be perfect or your customers. You're not.
Or your
Set
co-hosts.
those expectations and understand them yourselves. And for all the married guys out there, if you do make a mistake, that's what jewelry stores are for. There you go.
Flower shop,
Flower shops, that's right.
flower shops, jewelry store, restaurants.
Restaurants, that's right.
So that's true. When as soon as I give my wife flowers for the hell of it, she's like, "What mistake did you make?" I'm like, "I'm just giving you flowers."
All right. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you for coming. This is not the most comfortable topic for people to talk to. We really appreciate you coming on and opening up. This was cool.
Weight off your shoulders.
That's right. Well, we could also have have an intense session of hardcore confessions or something. That might
Right.
get a little weird though. So
You know what? The next episode we're gonna have a priest on. We'll do a confessional. Now, we can have a rabbi, but I don't think they do the same thing.
No, but we
How
can
many
wing,
Hail
we can wing
Marys?
it. We can wing it.
No, well, wasn't there that Seinfeld when Elaine talks to the rabbi and thinks it's like she's talking to a priest and it's confidential, and he starts telling everyone her business? All right, thanks a lot, guys. This has been a lot of fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay, take it easy.